as the contestants have to work in teams and learn how to trust each other. Guided by Judge Zolanene and guest chef Nathan Clark from the Test Kitchen fledglings, they'll need to stay sharp and think on their feet. Catch all the cooking drama on the Tastemaster SA. Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The rivalry between continental reigning champions Banyana Banyana and the Copper Queens will reach its maximum heat as they intensify their WAFCON preparations. The clock is on a downhill towards their journey to Morocco. This is the international friendly. Catch the incredible clash between South Africa and Zambia on Tuesday 3 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, like, seriously, how was your weekend? How did it go for you? What did you do this weekend? Was it all chilled or work for many people? And for some people, it's a hybrid of the two. For me, I think in the main, it was a pretty chilled weekend. But I did have in some sort of strategic work and thinking that I had to engage in. But what I certainly did, I did three things from a sporting perspective. I watched what is called the South African Grand Paddle Championship that I saw, and then followed by watching the European Champions League final on Saturday night and watched the African Champions League final last night. So that's what I certainly did for the weekend, and very little time for much else when you then work it out, besides going maybe for a lunch or two. But I'll tell you what, did you think, as you did about the weekend, about what for you moved the National Pulse or what's likely to move it today? Now, by the way, talking about what's going to move the Pulse, did you know, and I must say I didn't know this, the second group of South African Afrikaners have landed in the USA as part of the Trump SOS call. And I didn't know that, but they are there now. So what does this mean? Now, it's interesting, how many people finally will go. There's one thing from talking about 49 to more, and some people suggesting it could be so much more. So let's, however, get a perspective on this with Professor George Tsibani. Not so much on just the refugees, if you want to call them that, but just on South Africa-US relations, and are they tense, and what really needs to be the antidote to all of that? What's the remedy for all of that, right? Well, Prof. George Tsibani from the UJ Nuclear Research Center, much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, I understand, so the context, of course, has been a lot of things, right? The refugee story, the issue of expropriation, the issues of language, the issues of, genocide has been spoken about, the issue of South Africa's position regarding Israel versus Palestine, and all of that has come together, and you have a view regarding South Africa-US relations and what needs to happen next. So go for it.
No, thank you very much. So I think we are living at a time when we have an excitement in South Africa with a good president that understands the power of soft power in persuading and influencing the global community to understand South Africa's needs and realities. And unfortunately, few minorities in South Africa misunderstood President Donald Trump concept of Make America Great Again, which is MAGA, and they interpreted it to make apartheid great again. That's really unfortunate. And also, it is really unfortunate also that also President Trump being influenced by minorities in South Africa who are struggling to accept to be ordinary citizens of South Africa and try to revert back to apartheid era, where they claim that there is genocide in South Africa. Reality that we are faced with is that we have a high crime rate in this country, across board and across cultures, particularly in rural families in South Africa. If we were to look at the statistic, we were recorded a statistic of 1.1 million households experiencing house-breaking incidents, which represent 5.7% of all households in the country, and about 51% of these incidents were reported by police. So in other words, there is high crime rate in terms of house-breaking across board, and police managed to report about 51% of those.
Okay, I got that. But let's then talk about something. Look, we clearly know if we did a list of things that are going wrong in South Africa, there's probably like 20 things that we can talk about, right? And maybe if we get time, we will. Crime is obviously one of them, right? But let's go back then to your soft power that you talk about between South Africa and USA. Let's start by this. What do you feel right now? How would you describe South Africa's relationship with the USA and vice versa?
At the moment, we are sitting with a very strong relationship with America. If we're to use a report by one of our economists in South Africa, he highlighted, which is very positive, it's Wandile Sissobo, the chief economist of Agribees, South Africa, indicated that we exported produce of 36 billion in the year 2000 and to nearly 266 billion in 2024. In other words, through AGOA, we have made more export in this country to America, meaning that they will have an existence of multi-relationship and multi-partnership with American companies and between the farming community in South Africa through AGOA. That is an opportunity that we need to exploit. And one guy, a gentleman, a friend of mine, even indicated that irrespective of what the minority, like the AfriForum and so on, have actually misled the global community about genocide, we should not stop marketing our country. Remember, South Africa is a post-colonial, post-apartheid country. In other words, we're not a post-colony. We're a post-apartheid. In other words, former colonies, descendants of the colonialists of this country, are sitting with us and are part of our country. And to some extent, they can reverse back to a colonial mindset, which needs to be sort of persuaded through soft skill. So the power of soft skill, as used by our first democratic president, Nelson Mandela, have been sort of appreciated at a global level. At the moment, we're even supported by countries around Europe regarding how our governances work.
How would you determine, just so that we don't misunderstand this, when you say soft skills, I have my own views about it, but how would you describe soft skills?
We remember we are belonging to a philosophy of Ubuntu, which is about coexistence, cohabitation, in other words, living together in harmony and side by side. That's the soft skill. Where we have misunderstanding and miscommunication, we believe on a national dialogue and discussion of matters. And this is what Mandela has taught us as well. And this is what our president articulated during the discussion with the president.
All right, so practically, when we're talking about Ramaphosa now, practically in terms of soft skills, what has he displayed around soft skills that A, is admirable, or B, that he's fallen short? And maybe moving forward, what type of soft skills are required? Because at this point in time, I have not heard Donald Trump say, actually, Ramaphosa, we've got it wrong about genocide. So that White House visit, what did South Africa gain from it?
We have gained a lot of milestones out of this, yes. In a sense that we have support from European countries that they dismiss any genocide in South Africa. That's number one. Because easily, when a first world country like USA claim that there's genocide in South Africa, they will all withdraw their investment in our country. We didn't receive that. We received very positive to say South Africa has no genocide. That's number one in my view. Number two is that.
But Trump hasn't said that.
No, it's not about Trump, sir. Trump is an individual. We are concerned about global community. We are concerned about international diplomacy. We are also concerned about influencing companies in USA. Remember that the discussion at hand is not about politicians. It is about leadership beyond an elected politician. So our view is that we have managed through a partnership with all South Africans, from organized business, trade union, as well as opposition parties, to attend the meeting and display a collective view of South Africa we want beyond 2063 agenda to unlock opportunities for ourselves. So for me, that's the win. We do not need President Trump to immediately respond. We're focusing more on addressing long-term relationship rather than short-term objectives.
In the meantime, as we're talking, the issue of Afrikaners taking refuge to the USA continues unabated from 49 last week. Now, a few weeks ago, now we know there's another group that just left. So we'll talk about that and maybe how does Ramaphosa's soft diplomacy assist South Africa regarding back home, but also other key international relations. Let's say, for example, Palestine versus Israel. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Gordon Ramsay is back, and your favorite kitchen disasters are still somehow in business. New season, same confused chefs, terrifying walk-ins, and enough grease to fry your Wi-Fi. Watch as Gordon tries to fix the unfixable with nothing but sheer rage, British sarcasm, and an iron stomach. Kitchen Nightmares Season 8, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Come for the food, stay for the emotional damage.
EFC is live this Thursday. The indestructible champion Zakir Badat descends from the Wild Mountains to defend his welterweight title against Nigeria's electrifying kickboxing champion Segun Ogunaike. Plus, Timnan Lawuli takes on Sibusiso Suvendila, and undefeated Kevin Pretorius steps up to challenge Oswaldo Benedito. EFC 124 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
It all starts with FNB Private. With secure, easy payments for a hassle-free overseas holiday. Tap, swipe or go digital with your FNB Visa cards. Earn rewards when using your FNB credit card or global account debit and virtual card. You can even fund your global account on the FNB app while traveling. Make the most of every moment. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. TCs earn rules and limits apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
And if I asked you a question, are you connected to the National Pulse? Obviously, you should say yes because you're listening to me right now. But are you completely engaged in terms of, are you on the pulse in terms of responding to the biggest issues that we talk about now? You can respond by calling in. We'll take your calls live in about 10-15 minutes time or so. 086 000 2032 keys will certainly do that. Then to WhatsApp, you can have the option to text or voice note, 30 seconds max, please. 061 4104 107. You got that? 0614 104 107. And the 104 107 reflects the fact that you can catch SAFM throughout the nation on 104 to 107. Meter bands change because you can catch us all around the country. We'll get to some of the other thoughts in a moment. You know, you can also use the hashtag The National Pulse when you're tagging us on the X platform, Twitter, tag SFM Radio and myself. My guest is Professor George Tsibani. We continue talking about the tense US-South Africa relations, and according to Prof. Tsibani, the soft power, sounds a contradiction, soft power, is the way that South Africa is to go, drawing on examples of our leader of the democratic nation, the first one, Nelson Mandela. Right, let's get back then to Prof. Tsibani. Right, so I was asking you then, just before the break, about how then should the president, in terms of his soft power, respond to the pronouncements of let's say, AfriForum in particular?
I think what he has done very well to me is that, irrespective of what the AfriForums have done and others, the Solidarity Unit and the 49 families that were there, including the new group that have gone there, he has reset the bilateral relationships between South Africa and USA, and he has made some kind of inroads in terms of ensuring that there is a collaboration on technological exchange programs. Trade talks between the two countries actually were discussed. And very importantly, he has organized a business and a labor collaboration, which is quite unique in other countries, where you have representatives like Johann Rupert, Andre Gore, and Zindi Swatosi. And interestingly, also from sport and recreation side, he was able to have Mr. Els announcing himself that he's still a South African citizen and interested to ensure that they should sort of come to South Africa. Remember, we have G20 sort of in South Africa this year. We need a smooth process to hand over to America in 2026. So in other words, this initiative is very, very critical. So for me, there were a lot of achievement by our delegation to against this saga of people migrating as refugees to USA.
Okay.
And you cannot even sort of, sometimes people exploit weaknesses that we have. In other countries, they use other forms of weaknesses. But in this case, we're unfortunate to have people claiming genocide and use that as an opportunity to get to America, to get opportunities in America.
So on the G20 issue, therefore, right?
Yes.
I mean, and lots has been discussed about tariffs and AGOA, the implications thereof, and many people believe like AGOA is gone. What needs to be done is a renegotiation of some other deal, of the details which we don't quite know. So how would you then play South Africa as a country? How would you then play the next few months with the USA, considering, as you said, we want to maximize the transfer to the USA for G20? We currently lead it. USA will lead it the next time around. How do we leverage of that to get the best for South Africa?
We are doing that very well, in my view, in a sense that so far, the first discussion that we were having in Nazareth as a country indicated how South Africa is positioning itself as the first African country to host G20 in Africa. And that actually led to have a global financial architecture reform, which actually helps our relationship with IMF in terms of debts that we have, negotiating ways of looking at South Africa as a strategic partner for Africa's agenda in terms of African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That to me was an achievement, number one. Number two is that in as much there is a hullabaloo in terms of agriculture, AGOA being sort of coming to a stop, there is an opportunity in terms of ensuring that the G20 will look at this and look it in review through a summit that is being planned and draft a new approach which will include European countries and the G20 countries to renegotiate as a collective with South Africa in terms of addressing the AGOA, because that's very critical. And as Wandile Mhlobo has mentioned, we have made a lot of impact. I mean, 266 billion investment. It's huge in a third world country like South Africa. Number three is the issue of restoring sustainable development. South Africa actually have spent 3.3 billion on green hydrogen initiative and just energy transition phase. And that has been praised by the G20 countries. And as I'm speaking to you, universities and TVET colleges are busy working on green hydrogen initiatives through the G20 and other forums that are in place.
Let me end with this. We're on to news time. Let me end with this, Prof. Tsibane. In terms of your soft power, what do you feel? And a quick answer on this one: South Africa's current standing regarding Israel versus Palestine, its position it's taken, and whether you think they would need to approach this differently.
Yes, remember, South Africa has adopted, which I fully support, a non-alignment agreement. And Nelson Mandela put it very well when he was interviewed in America. And he said, no one can tell us who it should be our friends. And our friends included Cuba, Russia, China, and Palestine. And that is the reason that has led to some to feel uncomfortable with the government that we have. It's because we challenge the current genocide in Palestine. And we felt that that is what has caused this use and abuse of concept genocide to be used against South Africa, so that we are tempted to, or sort of discredited for taking Israel to the international court. And I think that's the main reason, root cause of the problem. There's no way that we can talk about genocide in this country when we have even a lot of illegal immigrants in our country. And therefore, I think, in my view, soft power, rather than using military sort of intervention, is what we need to promote, because it is aligned to our paradigm, which is Ubuntu.
Okay, but where the soft power will succeed, there's been lots of soft power in that region for the better part of a year, and it doesn't quite help people just dying every single day. Right, let's leave it at that. However, Professor George Tsibane, appreciate your thoughts, and I think your piece was quite fascinating in terms of how you put it together in the first instance. So much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Western Cape High Court has declared unconstitutional and invalid the decision of the National Assembly to designate Dr. John Hlophe as one of its representatives to the Judicial Service Commission. Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubai says there has been no deliberate attempt by the state to delay justice in apartheid-era cases. She was speaking at the Gqeberha High Court, where the third inquest into the 1985 murders of the Credit Four is underway, and the Ukrainian and Russian delegations have arrived at the Siragin Palace in Istanbul for the second round of direct peace talks. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash before Allendale Road. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange. And the N1 northbound in Pretoria has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions before the N4 Imalahleni exit. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Umgeni Road, all lanes are open. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park and Victoria Embankment eastbound queuing towards Dorothy Nyembe Street. In Cape Town, the N1 inbound has a crash reported at the N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive. Voortrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland, and Robert Sobukwe Road eastbound has a crash reported at Valhalla Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, well, it's Monday afternoon. To me, how are you? Firstly,
I'm well, thanks. How are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, a lot has happened over the last few days, including Sundowns not winning last night. I didn't say losing, not winning. But what's your big story now?
Absolutely, very sad. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, we start things off with cricket, where SA batter Heinrich Klaasen has announced his retirement from international cricket after 7 years with the Proteas. Klaasen, who recently featured in the IPL for the Sunrisers Hyderabad, will walk away having represented South Africa in 4 tests, 60 ODIs, and 58 T20s. Klaasen scored 2,141 runs on ODIs at an average of just under 44 in the middle order. In athletics, South African ultramarathon star Gerda Steyn has set her sights on completing the coveted Comrades Marathon and Two Oceans Marathon double this year, having already claimed her 5th straight Two Oceans Marathon win in Cape Town in April. Steyn is now aiming to secure her 3rd consecutive 4th overall Comrades title. The 89-kilometer Comrades Down run is set for this Sunday, and she says that she believes she's in strong form to complete the double this weekend.
I have certainly got my eyes on the Two Oceans and Comrades double this year. It has been my goal from the start of the year. It's what I've been training for. So, yes, 100% that is the goal.
Players will bounce back from their loss in the CAF Champions League final stronger. Now, the Brazilians lost 2-1 in the second leg of the final, ultimately losing 2-3 on aggregate to Pyramids. Now, Cardoso says that they missed something in order to be at a level where the Tshwane side needed in order to win. Elsewhere, Paris Saint-Germain striker Ousmane Dembele was named Champions League Player of the Season by UEFA. This is after his turnaround season ended with him playing a big role in his side winning the competition for the first time. Dembele struggled early in the campaign, dropped by coach Luis Enrique for a league phase game with Arsenal for disciplinary reasons. But the 28-year-old went on to score 8 Champions League goals after his switch to a more central role. While Dembele failed to find the net in PSG's 5-0 thrashing of Inter Milan in Saturday's final in Munich, he was singled out by the manager for his performance. Then in rugby, Bulls director of rugby Jake White says that leadership and form of his senior players are laying the foundation for the team's United Rugby Championship success. Now, this follows their thrilling 42-33 quarter-final win over Edinburgh at Loftus Versfeld on Saturday, which set up an exciting SA derby in the semi-finals against the Sharks. The former Springbok mentor highlighted the importance of big-name players stepping up when it matters the most, as he singled out Willie Leroux's man of the match performance. Meanwhile, the Stormers coach John Dobson says that they were bullied when they crashed to a heavy 36-18 defeat against Glasgow Warriors in the United Rugby Championship quarterfinal. Loss on Friday, Dobson said that he did not know how his team would be able to fix their inability to dominate the gain line. Finally, in tennis, second seed Coco Gauff advanced to the quarterfinals for the 5th year in a row at the Roland Garros, following a 6-love and 6-5 win over Ekaterina Alexandrova, while Alexander Zverev progressed to the quarterfinals after beating Talon Griekspoor, or rather after Griekspoor retired hurt with a score of 6-4 and 3-love. And just before I go, I need to mention my MVP for this weekend, and it must be Siyabonga Ngezana, who continues with his brilliant form in Romania since signing for FCSB, as he has been officially named in the league's team of the season for a second consecutive year, and he's also been voted the defender of the season. Remember, he joined from Kaizer Chiefs back in 2023, and according to Transfer Market, the 27-year-old now is worth a whopping 2.5 million euros, and that can only mean that it will take a lot of money to convince the 7-time international to leave the Arena Nationale. So flying the South African flag high nicely in Europe. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next
Okay,
hour.
well, listen, I just want to ask you, because I was thinking about it as I walked into the SABC today to do my show, that we know Sundowns lost, okay, fine, we got that. But supporters of, say, the two other main clubs in South Africa, I mean, there's many clubs, but Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, would they be disappointed that Sundowns lost because it's a South African defeat on the African continent in the biggest club tournament for the Africa? Or would they be thrilled that Sundowns lost because, like, come on, how can our biggest enemies go out and win and we celebrate that? So we're quite happy. What do you think?
Funny that you're asking that question. I was actually looking at tweets just yesterday, or was it this morning? And I saw a couple of tweets of fans that were actually very happy that Sundowns won. And from me, I would say it wasn't a Sundowns thing. It was more of a South African side. So I was hoping that the whole country would be behind Sundowns. However, not with everyone. It's a club thing.
So you're saying, I mean, Sundowns lost, you would have Chiefs and Pirates supporters quite thrilled, actually.
Yeah, there are some fans out there that are quite thrilled that Sundowns didn't win.
Well, there you are. That's more from Tumi for sport and society and the social dynamics that come into it in another hour's time.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Turn up the heat on the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 as the contestants head out to a world-famous Winelands estate to take on the ultimate comfort food challenge, gourmet burgers. Inspired by their dads, they must create the ultimate burger to capture his spirit, with every element made by hand. Fire up the grill and catch the Tastemaster SA Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, R765, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're going to get to some of your comments in a moment. Just so here's two things. You're a supporter of Chiefs and Pirates. Did you support Mamelodi Sundowns last night in the African Champions League final? Yes or no? And tell me why. There's another comment about the conversation I had about soft power as per my chat with Prof. George Tsibani. And here's one. South Africa only has soft power left. There is nothing else in its arsenal. That soft power, SP, is also damaged because of government corruption. When a known thief uses SP, soft power, he is seldom believed. Okay, that's one comment. We'll get to more in a moment, right? Let's pick out, however, another important issue, whether you want to call this soft power or not, is another debate. Well, starting from today till the 27th of this month, so the month of June, the Transnet Pelopeppa Health Train is coming to the province of, Gauteng, then specifically in Heidelberg and Vereeniging, as part of its initiative to provide healthcare to community members who cannot afford decent healthcare. I mean, it could well be the whole country, right? But let's find out more about it with Shamona Kandia, who's the Health Portfolio Manager for Transnet Foundation. Shamona, much appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, thank you for the privilege of being able to speak of our beautiful babies and this amazing South African initiative on air.
Well, you certainly got us all very, very interested with your enthusiasm. Tell me more about this amazing project and how ultimately it will impact society for the better.
Well, Pelopeppa is a South African global icon, in fact, as a project, as a healthcare project, with its aim of, really simple. It is expanding the access to healthcare by those impoverished communities. We have 2 fantastic trains that go around the country providing free healthcare services to communities. And these trains are 2 marvels of technology. Babies of South Africa, it is one thing that South Africa can be very proud of, homegrown, homemade, and really it is a facility or a mobile facility on rail. Now we bring state-of-the-art treatment and care to our patients. We love patients and patients love us. The trains start off in January each year. We do about 38 weeks of roaming around the countryside. We spend 2 weeks at each particular station wherever we go, and all sorts of unintended benefits apart from direct medical services to our communities out there also happen. These trains through Transnet, through the brand, it's our little give back to communities who support Transnet operations throughout the country.
So when you say give back, give me some practical examples of the actual give back and how it changes things.
Okay, so we focus on comprehensive primary health care. Wherever we go, the spectrum or the basket of services, the service offering, we do general health and well-being. We have basic screening services for a range of minor ailments, community awareness on those things that people still, in those deep corners of South Africa, fail to actually understand or wrap their heads around, like your cancer screenings and what diabetes can mean. So those are the kinds of things that we offer in terms of general health and wellness. And then we have a custom or a tailor-made service that offers basic dental services. We have our own onboard dentist rooms where we can treat just a variety of dental conditions. We have optometry services ranging not just from vision screening, but we're especially proud of the laboratories that we have on board, so that when we go out there and you visit that train, if you've been diagnosed with an ocular condition that requires you to have a pair of spectacles or readers, we're able to manufacture that on board this train and dispense it, within the next 45 minutes to an hour to those patients, so they receive that end-to-end service. And then we have a psychology clinic on board, or counseling services, which has been, especially since COVID, it's been proven to be very successful. People are dealing with a range of mental illnesses and stresses. So we're seeing that those kind of programs are being popularized, and that kind of help is really, really appreciated. And then last but not least, both our trains have our own onboard pharmacies, just so that we make sure that when patients are diagnosed with those kind of minor ailments on the trains, we're able to offer that end-to-end service and close off the service where our patient goes home with the necessary medication that they need.
How then do you get to a situation, in terms of the places that this train goes on, this health train, over the month, right? Mention some names of places, and then how is it accessible to those communities?
Okay, so both the trains are completely dependent on rail and the rail infrastructure. So the targeted communities would be those communities that lie along the mainline rail infrastructure of the country. For example, you've picked out Heidelberg and Vereniging. We're also going to be in Tshwane in a couple of months with one of the, with the other train. In the other provinces, right now, we've just completing in Mpumalanga. We're in the Bushbuck Ridge area of Mpumalanga, having just completed an area called Waterval-Boven. We're heading into Limpopo with that train next. We have a national reach. As long as the community lies within the proximity of rail infrastructure, then we chug our way into those communities.
And just lastly, very, very quick answer. When the community, uses this facility, what do they say?
Oh my goodness, Ashraf. They hail both those trains as the miracle trains, the healing trains. They wait for days at stations just to be able to get the experience of being helped and served by the practitioners on that train. Pelopeta is really a golden child of communities, but she receives support. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm certainly very interested in all things that you do and how it impacts community, because we always look at that. You need to build, champion communities. So Shimona Kandia, the health portfolio manager for Transnet Foundation, and here we are, it's called the Pepper Health Train, coming to you at a station near you. That's really what it is. This is the National Pulse.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
How's this for some of the latest news, right? Vincent, who's a 40-year-old man, he wanted to save money on his car insurance premium. So he got a quote from Outsurance, and Vincent now saves a massive 990 rands a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2 litre. Does that resonate? Well, get a quote today. See how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 086 let me get that right. 08600 60000. You got that? Or visit outsurance.coza. You always get something out. Licensed insurer, NFSP, T's and C's, and information online.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, I need to hear what you have to say. Let me just tell you what's still coming up on the show. We'll be chatting about the Credit 4 inquest that started today. There's an update on that National School Nutrition Program that we touched on earlier on. We should be chatting to the editor of the Mail and Guardian, or the CEO of the Mail and Guardian. In fact, I heard there's some lets off of staff, quite big numbers that we'll touch on later on. And Al Jamaa themselves are now getting to a situation where they are set to lay charges today, in fact, against the 9 members of parliament who visited Israel on that fact-finding mission, a few months back. So all of that's still to come here on the National Pulse. But what's important right now is, are you on the pulse? I need to hear what you have to say. So let's hear it. Here's one comment.
Ashraf, without trying to sound emotional about this thing of the people who take refuge in America by soiling the name of our beautiful country, but I think our leaders must now take a stand. And these people that are moving to America based on these lies of being facing a genocide, they have to lose their citizenship, because now they are going to sit in America, and then when it comes time to vote, they will vote against this country whilst they are soiling the name of this beautiful country. So goes here is Bloemfontein.
Okay, they should lose their citizenship. That's one comment. There's more. Here's another.
Afternoon, Ashraf, here as of the station. I believe GNU is made of 10 political parties, and the whole 9 political parties is the same parties that were rebuking ANC about corruption and all. Now, they must come up and help us whether ANC is changing or is not changing, or they're going to keep quiet because they are 10 in 1 or 1-10. They got the effective combination with ANC. They can't tell anything about ANC. Tusi from Inanda, bye.
Okay, so you're saying because they're part of it, they're very much a part of the ANC for now, although they were knocking them earlier. I mean, they certainly were knocking them earlier, there's no question about that, right? Let me just pick up another comment.
Ashraf, without trying to sound emotional about this thing.
I played that
Ashraf,
one. Let me see, I played that one already. Let's get to this one.
Hi, Ashraf. Yeah, I've been listening to this, Professor. I must say, this is far-fetched. If we still cling on to apartheid and still sing struggle songs, we never grew up, we're still struggling. And another thing is, people cannot just say the country is going right, because now, as a white South African, I'm born here, I'm South African. Nothing's going to change that. My sons doesn't get work. Where is this going?
Okay, your sons don't get work. I wonder, I mean, anybody wants to talk about that in terms of how that impacts you when you don't get work? If, as the claim suggests, that it's not on the basis of let's say, color or ethnicity, right?
Hello, Ashraf. I'm a Kaizer Chiefs fan. I supported Sundowns yesterday. They represented the country quite well, and it was a fight well fought. The only team that I would not support is Orlando Pirates, because they always focus on Kaizer Chiefs. Even if they are not playing against Kaizer Chiefs, to them it's all about Kaizer Chiefs, Kaizer Chiefs, Kaizer Chiefs. That's my biggest problem with them. Otherwise, I don't have a problem with Sundowns. I wish that they could bring another star, but unfortunately, it couldn't happen. But it was a fight well fought.
Okay. Are you saying that Pirates also focus on Chiefs even when they're playing in a final, for example, of the CAF Champions League? I'm trying to understand that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Svito from Guatemala. I'm a Pirates fan and very disappointed that Sundowns has lost. I was behind them with full force. I was hoping that they will bring it back home. Since it's been a long time, we haven't lifted that cup. Thank you.
Okay, it's an interesting one. I mean, would you support your great rivals, one of your greatest rivals, because they represent South Africa in a continental competition? This one's very topical too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, what I think of is the journey that is going to be taken by our boys to the mountains. Now, they are on the verge to go to the mountains for circumcision, but there is this bet happening that they never come back from the mountains alive. We pray in this month that they must all come back alive from the mountains. Thanks, Ashraf.
And that's another balancing act between, the coming of age of young people, mainly Xhosa speaking people, on the one hand, versus the fact that they're at risk with their lives, many of them, and how do you feel about it? By the way, we're chatting to the Minister of the Kokta Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velenkosi Klabisa, at 5:20 about just that. So do not miss it.
Hello, Ashraf. This is Day in Western Cape. All I can say is that when Trump came into power, a lot of farm workers were deported. So now there's a shortage of farm workers. So the plan is simple. Take those in South Africa who want to live and fill the position of those who have been deported. So you can't change the strategy. So just to satisfy the farmers in America, they've got replacement. That's what is happening. So let's not worry about what is happening. Nothing's going to change.
Well, I would be worried if a president of another country calls my country genocidal. I mean, I would be worried about it. Why would you even allow that? And especially if it's not true. There's issues in our country, but genocide, deliberate, attempt to effectively annihilate a community or a nation within the nation. No, man. That's what I think. I wonder what you think. Right, let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Dr. Hlophe's designation to the JSC declared unconstitutional, and SAPS called on to prioritize petty crimes. For SAFM News, I am Ondela, and a very good afternoon. The Western Cape High Court has declared unconstitutional and invalid the decision of the National Assembly to designate MK parliamentary leader Dr. John Hlophe as one of its representatives to the Judicial Service Commission. The DA approached the court over Hlophe's designations to the JSC. It was joined by Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch. The court ruled that the National Assembly may not designate Dr. Hlophe to serve on the JSC in terms of the Constitution. It has ordered both Hlophe and the MK to pay costs. In February last year, the National Assembly voted to impeach Hlophe after the JSC found him guilty of gross misconduct. Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubai says there has been no deliberate attempt by the state to delay justice in apartheid-era cases. She was speaking at the Gqeberha High Court where the third inquest into the 1985 murders of the Kredok Four is underway. The inquest is probing the deaths of anti-apartheid activists Matthew Koniwe, Fort Qalata, Sparrow Mkhondo and Sicelo Mhlawuli, believed to have been killed by the apartheid security branch. Kubai says the state has supported multiple inquests and prosecutions in recent years, and that a presidential commission of inquiry will determine whether anyone in government deliberately stalled the cases.
There hasn't been a deliberate action to stop or to delay the inquest. You'd note that even now the president has opened and appointed a commission of inquiry to be able to look at those, and that commission of inquiry will deal with the issues. If there's anyone, then that person will be identified by the commission of inquiry and why that has been done. I think let's allow for the commission of inquiry to determine. From where we are sitting as the state, there hasn't been any deliberate delays in prosecuting or even bringing the cases that relate to apartheid crimes into court.
Crime expert Mike Bolhuis has called on the SAPS to prioritize petty crimes. According to Bolhuis, authorities' failure to deal with petty offences has resulted in perpetrators becoming hardened criminals. This comes as the country faces escalating crime rates, with violent crimes reaching alarming levels. Bolhuis has attributed the surge in crime to systemic failures in law enforcement agencies, which include a lack of expertise, resources and motivation to tackle crime. Bolhuis elaborates.
You need detectives to handle all the small cases as well, the stealing of the cell phone, the handbag. And it needs to be not, just going to police station and making a case and getting the CAS number and claiming your insurance. It needs to be investigated.
Yeah.
If you start stealing just petty stuff like clothes, then the next thing you'll steal is the electronics in the house. The next thing is the car. And then you'll get involved in cash in transit or gangs or drug trafficking. So crime begets crime. It will always grow. You need absolute zero tolerance, and you need police to do it.
The Traditional Leaders Organization, Contralesa, says it is unfortunate that the initiation season was launched by the COGTA Minister, Nkosi Velonkosi Hlabisa, instead of the Initiation Organizing Committee. Contralesa President Kgosi Mathuba Mokoena says the launch should have been done by the chairperson of the National Initiation Organizing Committee, Nkosi Mahlangu. Mokoena has also urged those permitted to operate initiation schools not to charge exorbitant amounts.
This is the custodian of culture and tradition, so it is done by a politician, which is so unfortunate. But want to warn all those who are going to be given a permit to run the school to stop abducting our boys and take them to the mountain without their permission. Want to warn them again that the boys are there to be initiated, not to be assaulted. No young boy must be deprived of having water while in the mountain. Want to warn those who are going to run the school to stop charging people exorbitant amounts, because those boys are going to have to be initiated. It's not a money-making machine.
A second round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have ended barely an hour after they began in Istanbul in Turkey. This comes a day after a massive Ukrainian drone attack on Russia's nuclear-capable strategic bombers. The talks began nearly 2 hours later than scheduled, with no explanation of the delay. The mood in Russia was angry as the talks kicked off, with influential war bloggers calling on Moscow to deliver a fearsome retaliatory blow against Kyiv. This after Ukraine launched one of its most ambitious attacks of the war yesterday, targeting Russian nuclear-capable long-range bombers in Siberia and elsewhere. Recapping the top story, the Western Cape High Court has declared unconstitutional and invalid the decision of the National Assembly to designate MK parliamentary leader Dr. John Hlophe as one of its representatives to the Judicial Service Commission. I am Ondela Mbana for SAFM News, headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Rabada all set for the Australians. White praises senior stars as Bulls gear up for Sharks in URC semis, and Mokoena re-elected as the chairperson of the SASCOC Athletics Commission. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Sunninghill has a crash at Rivonia Road, and the N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash at Geldnes Interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Umgeni Road. All lanes are open. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, Main Road outbound in Observatory is slow moving towards the N2 highway. Robert Sepuku Road eastbound has a crash reported at Valhalla Drive, and Kuburg Road southbound in Brookland slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
After school snacks, a bag of chips or maybe some biscuits, instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front-of-package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The rivalry between continental reigning champions Banyana Banyana and the Copper Queens will reach its maximum heat as they intensify their WAFCON preparations. The clock is on a downhill towards their journey to Morocco. This is the international friendly. Catch the incredible clash between South Africa and Zambia on Tuesday, 3 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 2, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So let's get further comments on some of the biggest issues we've already touched on. Soft power, according to the guest we had, is what South Africa should be approaching in dealing with, say, the USA and others. That's Professor George Tsibani. Do you think that, well, he said that was very evident in South Africa's visit to the White House. Do you think that's true? Is it working for South Africa? We now know that another group of South African Afrikaners went off to the USA as part of that refugee status program that Donald Trump has allowed, and unprecedented in terms of the way it's been put together, I would think. Then the issue of the Pello Pepper train in terms of its role it plays, but also other things. You may have heard about it right now, the developing story and the breaking story, really, and we will touch on this just now, the issue of the Western Cape High Court ruling now that Dr. John Hlophe cannot serve on the JSC, Judicial Services Commission. Remember, that story has run for a good few months. What's your reaction to that? Let's get a sense of your feelings about that, right? In the meantime, last week we spoke about it. We chatted to Lindani Matiwani, the chairperson of the National School Nutrition Program, and he made the point about the fact that many of the service providers to the schools for these nutrition programs have not been paid, some of them 60 days, some of them beyond that. As a result of that, they are unable, therefore, to deliver on service, which means it has two implications. They, as service providers now, are severely financially strained, but also the many learners who totally depend on them won't get their meals, right? So the plan was we'll have an update today. Let's find out with Lindani Matiwani, the chairperson of the National School Nutrition Program Service Providers Association based in KwaZulu-Natal, in fact. Lindani, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Me on your slot. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. What has happened since Friday, since we last spoke?
Nothing much in terms of the status quo, because none of the payments have been paid. And unfortunately so, the last time that we communicated with the department was through that statement they sent, the media statement they sent. There haven't been any communications in terms of telling us exactly when they're going to pay or when they anticipate that they will pay.
Okay, so what then are the implications today? I mean, what has happened today to service providers and the learners? Yeah.
What has transpired is the fact that the suppliers are on over trying to source finance to be able to buy and deliver foods. Some they've managed to stock for a week this week. Some they've managed to stock at least for 3 days. Some, fortunately enough, they had more than enough stock, knowing the situation that we always face with the department, that you can't rely that month end you will be paid. So they do have an excess stock. But what is transpiring or happening is the fact that there is no stable situation out there. Some of the learners might go hungry without anything to be able to
how much stock do they have before learners go hungry? I mean, yeah, the service providers, how much can they carry?
It will vary. Some it will have the fact that they did not even have anything as it is today. Some maybe by Thursday they won't have. Friday they won't have, but definitely next week there will be very few suppliers who will be able to stock goods and deliver to school.
All right. What then do you expect to happen next? I mean, what's your next move?
It's not easy to say exactly what will happen because as it is, we were hoping and trusting that we might find something from the department, like there will be a special run. Maybe that will pay, say, tomorrow or latest or Wednesday. So up until this far, we are still hopeful that we might find some good news that will relieve the suppliers out of the
so
situation.
let's leave it at that. In fact, we should have been telling you that we've been trying to get hold of the education department in KZN, and they were unable to commit to speaking to us, but we now know that they'll speak to us just now in the next couple of minutes. So stick around for that, and I think maybe you'll find something that you are looking for. Much appreciate your time on this issue, and let's hope this issue can be resolved. That's Lindani Matewana, the chairperson of the National Schools Nutrition Program Service Providers Association in KwaZulu-Natal. I want to check if we've got a caller related to that issue. We may have, yes, no. Let's see if we can do that right away. In fact, so we will chat to the MEC for Education coming up just now. In the meantime, we do have Sakile Ngadi, who's with us, the DA-KZN spokesperson on education and agriculture. Sakile, you, I believe, have a thought on this. Go ahead and tell us.
Hi, yes. Afternoon to you and your listeners.
Thank you.
So in KZN, where we are based, the situation with the NSNP is quite dire. We have constant reports from service providers about the department's inability to pay them or pay them on time. We feel it's quite concerning because, grant funding is given to the NSNP in the provinces, and so that money is ring-fenced and can only be used to, deliver on those requirements. Mm-hmm. And so we don't understand why there's always constant delays. The last excuse the department says to us is that there was a change in the system, one system version to another, and that created serious delays in, service providers receiving payment, which obviously affects their ability to deliver food to schools. And so we had to get, even mayors like Chris Papas intervening in his municipality when 5 schools just couldn't provide food to thousands of learners. And so the inability for the department to get its house in order has far-reaching consequences, because we know, especially in a province like KZN, that this is probably the only meal some of these learners get in a day, and a hungry child can't learn.
Well,
So
absolutely. What
Mm.
do you understand by the official reason in terms of the department, in terms of why these monies can't be paid over to these service providers?
The reason is always changing. One of the reasons, like I had said, was that they had changed from one version of payment systems to another.
Mhm.
But we think that what's actually happening is because of the bloated wage bill, we know that in KZN, over 92% of the entire 66 billion rand budget for education is spent on salaries, which leaves a very small amount of money to do things like maintenance and also the learner transport and the NSNP. And we think that at some point, some monies meant for these contractors are taken away from the program to maybe substantiate or subsidize the wage bill.
Okay,
of the
because also speaking to Lindani Matiwani on Friday, in fact, he made the point
Yeah.
that in some cases it's not even a question of a few days. It's gone beyond 30 days into like 60 days that the people are not being paid. So this is now quite
Correct.
severe, and we can just imagine, these service providers and the impact that it has on their own cash flow and the running of their own businesses.
Yeah. What we also discovered at some point was that when the term of the last financial year ended, at the end of March, no payments happened from the departments. And so what we thought had happened there was that they were waiting for the new budget to come in so that they could pay their service providers, because they had overestimated just how much money they had on hand, just how much money they need to sort of supplement or give everyone that they had promised they would pay the adequate funds. And so it's a concerning thing, but we have tabled formal questions to the MEC in KZN. He hasn't parliamentary questions since, I believe, the first week of January this year. And so it's a department really in KZN that's operating without full disclosure and without transparency. But we will get to the bottom of what's exactly going on.
Okay, in fact, we will chat to the MEC for Education in KZN right after this, talking about the National Pulse. You've got it, Sakile. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Bafana are looking for nothing but maximum points to have a decent position in Group A. But neighbors Zimbabwe want to put their best foot forward to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025. Do not miss out on the thrilling action of Southern African football. South Africa battles it out with Zimbabwe this Saturday, 7 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief.
Tell me about who Olorato was and what she meant to the many, many people, the networks of people that formed her family.
Olorato was such a loving, passionate about life young woman. In every picture of hers that you come across, you are greeted by her smile before you even get to know who she is. The kind of child who always address people in a way that is befitting for their stature. When you are a mama to Olorato, you were a mama.
That's Criselda Kananda, a spokesperson for the family of the late Olorato Mongale.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, in fact, we should be chatting to the MEC now, but we're just battling to connect with the MEC, so we'll do that as soon as we can. In the meantime, let's get to some of the comments we've had from you, because you're on the pulse, and I need to connect with you and hear what you have to say.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I was very disturbed by the conduct of Minister of Higher Education, Nobuhle Ngabane, during her appearance in the Portfolio Committee of SETA. She was arrogant, totally arrogant. She even deliberately failed to answer simple questions. But her conduct was totally unacceptable. I don't know whether Lithuli House subject their deployee in government to account for their actions that brought the organization into this report. Shorty Signolo and Mafefe Limpopo. Thank you.
Okay, got that, Shorty. And in fact, we'll have an update on the Cradock 4 in just a moment.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Watching the CAF Championship last night as a chief supporter, a big part of me, my heart actually, wanted Sundowns to win as a South African and as a soccer lover, but my head did not want them to win because they cannot have a second star, and Chiefs did not even make it to the top 8 for next season. So yeah, there's a lot of Chiefs and Pirate supporters who will be also eagerly glad that Sundowns did not make it. Have a good job, bye-bye.
Well, you see, what you say reflects just the dilemma of so many supporters. Like, okay, if you win, it's good for South Africa. And then when they lose, like, bloody guys are rubbish. Anyway, I'm so happy you guys lost. You know, that type of conundrum. I'm sure as I talk to you, people, wherever you are around the country, like, that's me, you know. Right, let's do this. Let's move on to another issue. Now, the 9-day inquest into the deaths of the Cradock 4 proceeded in the Gqeberha High Court in the Eastern Cape today. That's Fort Kalata, in terms of the people, Matthew Goniwe, Sicelo Cloudley, and Sparrow Nkonto. All anti-apartheid activists were abducted and killed by the security police in 1985 as they left that region of Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape, right? So what happened today? Let's get an update with the SABC News reporter in that region, Sisipo Ngumbe. Appreciate your time and thanks for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Of course, anytime. Hello to you, Ashraf, and hi to the listeners as well.
Thank you. So give us an update on what took place today. What happened?
So today was really the start of what we are expecting to be about 9 to 10 days of a new inquest, of course, into this tragic murder that happened so many years ago. It's been 40 years, you know, and we were able to speak to a lot of the family members, and the son of one of the four, Fort Kalata, Lukanyo Kalata, actually spoke to us, and he said that they, as much as they've, of course, you know, been through so much this past 40 years, they feel very relieved that we are here now today because they feel that they are one day closer to justice. Today in court, it was really a full courtroom. We had family members in attendance. We had civil society organizations represented. We had political parties represented in court. And I think certainly one thing that was quite different to most of the cases I've been to is the number of legal representatives that were there today. We were looking at upwards of 15 legal representatives, each representing a different entity. You know, we have the NPA, of course. We had Advocate Nkai Tobi, who was appearing on behalf of community members of the Cradock community. We had a representation, of course, on behalf of the family members of the Cradock 4. We had representation for the SAPS members back then who have been mentioned, the SAPS member of the apartheid, police who have been mentioned in the court or in the case. And we had someone, a lawyer who's also appearing on behalf of a General van der Westhuizen, who was also part of the apartheid sort of security branch. So it was really, a lot of legal players and a lot of legal jargon, if I may put it like that, because there was, what came to the forefront was they were sort of discussing what evidence will be admissible in terms of what can be said by what witness and when. Right. So we had Advocate Nkai Tobi, suggesting that his client, if we can put it like that, can actually go, someone who he's who he's representing, who he's representing, and actually go forward and, give a testimony. But to what degree can he give his testimony? We had the representative for the police then stand up and say, but, we should be careful what should be said and what can't be said, lest this case really becomes, distracted and it becomes something that it's not. So there was a lot of sort of legal back and forth between some of the legal representatives of what is permissible as the trial does continue. And then also what it was decided by the judge eventually was that as the rest of the week goes on, of course, today was opening argument. Tomorrow, there will not be a formal court sitting. Instead, it will be what you call inspection by loco or inspection on loco, where we will actually, or the court will actually be taken to Cradock. We will first begin by going to the house of Matthew Goniwe, who allegedly there was actually an assassination attempt before the abduction that occurred in 1985. So as part of evidence, the court will actually look around the house. The court will be allowed to see, what could have happened, where, was the attempt, and what were the circumstances that were leading up to that. And then we will go on and we will go to the memorial site that actually memorializes not only the Cradock 4, but just apartheid martyrs in general, struggle liberators who actually lost their lives in apartheid. And from there, we will be going to Olifants Pass, which is actually where the abduction occurred, and then coming back to Gqeberha on Wednesday, I believe, where we will actually be taking a look at where the burnt body, where the burnt car, and the body was found. So it's going to be quite an interesting, week. And we had the lawyer of the family members actually say that their case is to actually demonstrate that the deaths of the Cradock 4 were brought about by a way of calculated and premeditated decisions of the apartheid regime, taken at the highest level of government security.
So it's going to be a busy period for the legal team, and certainly for yourself as well. And we're certainly going to track that story of the Cradock 4. Remember that story? It's historic. It's a significant, a tragic story, but a significant part of South Africa's move from apartheid South Africa to democracy. Sisipho Ngumbe, the SABC News reporter in Gqeberha. Right, let's get an update on that issue of the nutrition in KZN after this.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
So after we chatted to Lindani Matiwane, we're hoping to speak to the MEC for Education in that region. Yes, sort of confirmed and then unable to reach the MEC at the moment, but we do have the head of communications for the KZN Department of Education, and that's Muzi Mhlambi, and hopefully we'll be able to get all the answers we need there. So Muzi, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. First of all, we would like to apologize for the MEC driving en route from a rural school. He's experiencing network issues there.
Okay, much appreciated on that issue. Let's then talk about the bigger issue, really, which is what has happened. Lindani Matiwane, speaking from the National School Nutrition Program, saying that service providers have not been paid for a good few weeks, some of them months. As a result of that, they don't know where they stand. They may not have more supply for the learners in a matter of a couple of days. Where are we at? What's the position?
We want to start by saying whatever that we will be saying in terms of giving explanation is undesirable, and it's regrettable that service providers were not paid in time as it was scheduled. It will be appreciated that National Treasury has introduced a new system for payment of or processing of invoices, which is PAS volume version 6, which Department of Education is not the only one that is experiencing this. National departments and other departments in the province are experiencing this, and have issued leader statements on this in this regard. We also experienced the same last week, Tuesday, when we had uploaded all the invoices for April, because it's May now. So invoices, obviously, they will submit them after month end. So the only month that they are being owed, those that could not be paid last Friday, when on Tuesday we experienced glitches again, are owed only 1 month, which is April. But we are saying we don't want that to happen.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, even only 1 month, for a service provider is massive.
that is why, as a result of that, because we are committed to honor the payments, we then engage Treasury. And then after some deliberation, Treasury has agreed that there's going to be a special run that they have granted us tomorrow, which is the 3rd of June, when the invoices are processed. The service providers that could not be paid last Friday will get their monies on Friday. And we did issue a statement last Friday, and we even shared it with Lindeland Matiwane, who is the chairperson of the association.
Okay. He was claiming there was no update since Friday. So just a quick response. I mean, are you engaging with them directly, the National School Nutrition Program service providers?
Matiwane and I have got a very healthy conversation and engagement on daily basis, as and when there are issues and as and when we need to talk.
Okay.
We do talk.
I suggest you have a chat with him as soon as you get off the air, because there's some areas that needs to be sorted out. Much appreciate your time, Muzi Matlambi, the head of communications at KZN Department of Education. Great that you avail yourself to clarifying from your point of view, but it seems like all of that will be resolved on Friday. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy is expected to announce its latest fuel price adjustment before midnight tomorrow. The Western Cape High Court has declared unconstitutional and invalid the decision of the National Assembly to designate MK parliamentary leader Dr. John Hlophe as one of its representatives to the Judicial Service Commission. And militants linked to Al-Qaeda say they've attacked the Millennium Army in the city of Timbuktu. The extremist group Jainim says it has been shelling Malian army bases in the city, including the military airport. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra has a crash reported near London Road. The M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boysons, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle reported after the Allendale Road exit. In KZN, on the N3 northbound, a truck lost load reported near Van Renen Town. The N3 westbound has a stationary truck reported after the Cliffdale exit, and the M4 southbound has a crash before Bayhead Road Bridge. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing through Hospital Bend. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Milner Road, and Govan Becky Road eastbound in Khayelitsha queuing towards Swartklip Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, let's talk sport. I have to tell you, we've been asking people about Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns, and naturally, people have given all the answers like you've had, the contradictions that come with it, okay? Yes, I want them to win. Oh, they didn't win. I'm also happy, that sort of thing. But let me tell you something very quickly. Inter Milan lost the Champions League final on Saturday night. And through the streets of Milan, just after they lost, there was a whole group of people playing music, but somber music, like funeral music. And they carried a coffin. And that coffin sort of implied rest in peace, Inter Milan. And it was carried by the football supporters of AC Milan. I'll leave it to you to take over. Go for it.
They didn't just lose, they were thrashed. But we start things off with cricket this hour, where Proteas pace spearhead Kagiso Rabada says that he's ready to face All Fours Australia in the World Test Championship final at Lord's next week. The one-off 5-day clash could be defining for the country's red ball cricket at international level, having yet to win the biannual championship since its inception back in 2019. Now, Rabada, who had been at the center of controversy in the past few weeks over a positive cocaine test, says that he's now fully focused on the game and ready to play.
I feel good. I'm ready. I'm not focused on the result, it's focused on playing. My body feels good, my mind feels good. I'm ready to play. And we're ready to play. We don't get told, we get told who to play. Yeah? So I think we deserve to be there. And I'm excited to see what Australia can bring to us.
In the meantime, explosive Australian batsman Glenn Maxwell called time on his one-day international career but will continue in T20 cricket with his eye on next year's World Cup. The 36-year-old, who played 149 ODIs, blasting 3,990 runs, said that he was waiting or starting to feel the physical toll of the 50-over game. Maxwell's strike rate of 126 is the second highest in ODI cricket, behind any or only West Indian heavyweighter Andre Russell, where he has crushed 400s and 23 half-centuries. He also took 77 wickets with his offspring. Then in rugby, Bulls director of rugby, Jake White, says that the leadership and form of his senior players are laying the foundation for the team's United Rugby Championship success. This is after a thrilling 42-33 quarter-final win over Edinburgh at Loftus Versfeld, which set up an exciting SA derby in the semi-finals against the Sharks.
Willie is now man of the match in a quarter-final. I'm just using an example. We've had games where our decision makers and our senior players have played their worst in the playoff games. We've had them. So maybe this is another way of whatever it's worked, and I'm talking about whether it's Henning working with them mentally, whether it's the group growing, whether it's the combinations that we've kept together or changed, is helping. I mean, you know, that's what you need. In the big games, you need the best players to stand up and play their best rugby. That's just how rugby works, guys. You know, World Cup final 2007, Victor Matfield, man of the match. You know, World Cup 2019, Dwayne Vermeulen, man of the match. You know, sometimes the senior statesmen are the ones that play their best in those biggest games. And you know, when Willie wins man of the match in a quarter final, and I know I was joking when I said to you, I mean, but that's what do you think that means for the rest of the group? It means that, you know, there's ownership to your role now as a senior player, and that can only have a domino effect on everyone in the groups.
Then in athletics, South African athletics legend Kgotso Mokoena has been re-elected to lead the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee Athletes Commission. Mokoena made history 4 years ago as the first athlete to chair the commission and will continue in the role for another 4-year term. In an interview with SABC Sport, he expressed confidence that sporting federations are satisfied with the commission's efforts in supporting athletes.
Obviously, I was re-elected as the chairperson of the Athletes Commission, which only says one thing to me, is that all the national federations are quite happy with the work that we are doing for the athletes. And I really just want to say thanks to the guys that were part of the Athletes Commission in the last quadrennial. They've done absolutely fantastic. I managed to retain most of them to stay on the Athletes Commission. And we've got new blood now. You know, we've got young athletes that are really hyper and really activated in terms of their vision for the athletes. You know, life-saving, we've got new athletes there. Netball, we've got athletes there. Rights Mkari, we also have Rights Mkari. You know, these are athletes that are seriously always advocating for a better sports. You know, I'm so happy with the representation of the women on the new Athletes Commission as well.
Well, with that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, to me, and we'll certainly connect and get more responses on, you know, Chiefs, Pirates. Where did you stand with regard to Mamelodi Sundowns?
After a 1-0 draw in their opening match in last year's edition of the regional competition, Bafana and the Mambas meet again in this year's tournament opener. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025. Catch the glittering action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mozambique. This Wednesday, 4 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC+, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, as always, we've got Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers, to help us go through all these big numbers locally and globally. But first up, you've got some yearly results for Raubex. Makwe, go for it.
Afternoon to you and to the listeners. Three of their four divisions reported improved results, with materials handling and mining division encountering various operational and trading challenges. Order book up 10.3%, revenue up 21%, profits as headline earnings per share up 25%, and the final dividend is up 13%. And the company stands to benefit from the government's planned 1 trillion spent on critical infrastructure. Ashraf, already the guys are awarded a 2.3 billion tender to refurbish the parliament, and the board, after investigation, found no evidence of any unlawful conduct as alleged by a whistleblower. And the markets, as we stand now, the JSE has reached another record high, and we continue to be in an investment environment punctuated by escalating and de-escalating tariff-related pressures. Tariff headlines once again dominating markets as tensions are worsening and prompting traders to hold back from taking risky bets, as China and the US are accusing each other from violating their temporary trade agreement. And Trump also said he will double tariffs on steel and aluminum tariffs. And also geopolitics are escalating between Russia and Ukraine. That's before the peace talks. And locally, our Q1 agricultural exports managed to jump by 10% as our ports performance improved, and shipments to the US increased by 14% as we brace ourselves for the possible imposition of a 30% tariff around end of July. Remember, this sector accounts for almost 2% of our GDP, and tomorrow we'll be getting our Q1 GDP, which will be released around 12 o'clock. Oil prices jumped by about 4% after the producer group called OPEC. They kept output increases in July at the same level as the previous 2 months, cooling fears of oversupply. Brent crude is up 4.4% at $64 a barrel, and the yellow metal benefiting from increased safe haven demand as trade tensions are escalating, also getting a lift from a weaker dollar, which is pressured by the very same trade tensions. The gold is up 2.6% at 3,375. Global markets are down, but the JSE is up 0.7%, getting a lift from our resources, which are up 6%. The rand benefiting from a weaker dollar and firmer commodity prices, 17.86 against the US dollar, 24.22 against the pound, and 20.45 against the euro.
And we have it. Thanks for that, Makwe. We'll connect with you, of course, around the same time tomorrow. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're going to get to some of your calls shortly, and you can raise some of the biggest issues that matter to you. And of course, I would think some things matters to everybody, but other things matters to some people and not others. Either way, you certainly can comment. And what, is again, the issue of gender-based violence has come up, right? And there's this 14-year-old young person being killed again at the weekend in Gauteng, in the Gauteng region. That seems to be a pretty normal thing anyway, right? And somehow we have to have this given. And I know, certainly listening to Tula's show this morning about whether you want to call it a state of emergency or not, there's no question, and I have certainly said this before, and if I look at my tweets in the last 5-6 years, it's like we are not taking it anywhere near as seriously as we should in terms of violent violence, violent crime on a high level. It's like shame is one of those things, and then we leave no stone unturned, and inevitably it just repeats all the time. Seriously, something has got to give in the same way we gave attention to COVID-19. I don't know how many times I've repeated that point, right? Let's talk about the media world. And the media world is facing huge challenges, I think particularly print media, as there's a massive move towards digital consumption, for people like myself as a reader. And then what that means is there's a drop-off in people buying the physical newspaper. And then you have advertisers that perhaps follow suit as well. It's just so much easier now to put out something digitally. The question is, how do print media cope? That could be a question I should put to the Mail and Guardian, because the story is that they have a range of people who work for them full-time as opposed to on a freelance basis, and I understand something like 25 of their staff members, and I understand now they run the risk of losing their job. So let's bring on the line with us now the Hussein Karjika from the Mail and Guardian. Hussein, appreciate your time, and thanks as always for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners. Good to speak to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And let me declare a sideways interest. Of course, you and I know I've done lots of work for you guys in the past in the Twitter Spaces field, so I'm certainly very aware of how the Mail and Guardian works. Okay, but let's get to the reality of where we are. So, what is the position with the Mail and Guardian regarding your staff?
Right. So, Ashraf, what we've undertaken is a restructure that would be a fairly sort of dramatic shake-up of the traditional newsroom. As we've had in the past, and I think what has brought about the change is the fact that over the past 6 to 8 months, we've noticed the continued decline in commercial revenue. Normally, you have the cyclical highs and lows, and normally over December and Jan and Feb, you have your cyclical low revenue months, and then they pick up, come March, April, May, and you hit your highs in about August. And what we've noticed is there hasn't been that sort of return of revenues again. And one needed to sort of have a look and do some forecasts about the year ahead. And so, look, this needs sort of some real structural intervention now. I mean, there's always been the whole shift in migration transition from print to digital, which I think we've been navigating with great difficulty. But I mean, I think now more than ever, especially after, the whole sale of the leadership for distribution company On The Dot, and when Millions were sold that to Novus, we were hit with significant increases in distribution costs, and that has kind of sort of hastened the need for us to make the structural change now.
And therefore, so do I take it? I mean, there's two things in many ways they're linked. One is size of audience in terms of your reader, and then the impact of advertisers in terms of supporting potentially a failing audience or a diminishing audience. And the other one is advertisers themselves having their own challenges. Even if you were a much larger audience, they all have their own budget problems. I mean, is it a case of either or both?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, we have noticed, and the only comfort I get really is when I speak to other corporate execs, and they all sort of repeat the same sort of struggles that they had within their own organizations. And therefore, I guess, marketing spend sort of is really the last item that they would want to spend money on right now in terms of the changes that are happening in those organizations as well. But then with regard to declining audiences, I mean, I think it's a shift. It's definitely a decline in traditional print. Although I must say, I mean, having looked at the numbers, I think we've kind of bottomed out now. We've kind of reached here. We seem to have a consistent, albeit small, loyal print readership, but there is a growing online and digital audience now. The difficulty is commercializing that, and as you'll know, we're in a very big, in the middle of a big, shall I say, a fight with Google. Or certainly a matter that is with the Competition Commission now, and they've issued a provisional report that kind of aligned itself with the complaints that the publishers have made. And we're hoping that, once the final report is being issued, that will bring about some meaningful change in terms of how revenues flow between our organizations.
Okay. Now, I noticed that, first of all, the implications then of the 25 staff members that you put on Section 189, I mean, what are the implications for them?
Well, look, we had to, with the Reforms of the Labour Act very closely. We needed to issue the notice to everyone. It's not a matter of everyone just going to get terminated. We are sort of putting together a new business model, which we think would be fit for purpose for a new MNG, and we need to negotiate that with the staff. But it may very well be that a few of them will no longer be employed by the organization once we've completed this process.
And then they navigate to become freelancers, hired when they do some work for you.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think that there are some of these individuals have got really good credentials, strong credentials, are great writers, and have got good skills that can be used either on a freelance basis or elsewhere and across other platforms as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think I hope that the last thing I want to do is to have more journalists out in the street. I mean, I've been in this industry for many, many years, and it was really the last division of the organization that I touched. I mean, last year we did do some reduction in our commercial team, and we left the editorial team pretty much intact until we could not carry on like this.
Okay. There's a response from Sanaf, which I'll pick up right after this.
Banyana African champions host Zambia and Botswana in the Three Nations Challenge to prepare for their title defense in Morocco. All matches will be at the Lucas Moripe Stadium at 3 p.m. Banyana take on Botswana on Wednesday the 28th of May. Then Zambia faces Botswana on Saturday the 31st of May, and Banyana close with Zambia on Tuesday the 3rd of June 2025. The nation with the most points wins the trophy, and the tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 40 Rand for adults and 20 Rand for children under 12 and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Banyana_Banyana on X.
For the love of the game.
Turn up the heat on the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 as the contestants head out to a world-famous Winelands estate to take on the ultimate comfort food challenge, gourmet burgers. Inspired by their dads, they must create the ultimate burger to capture his spirit, with every element made by hand. Fire up the grill and catch the Tastemaster SA Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
The Morning Brief.
So what is your message as SASSA to these 210,000 or so beneficiaries? Is it that if they are not paid in June, it's not a glitch, it's intentional on your part?
If those beneficiaries who are affected do not get paid, they must know that it's not permanent. All that we simply expect from them is to present themselves at the SASSA office and present their correct credentials. We have observed, Tula Sizwe, that people, when they come and they are requested to present their credentials, they falsify the information. So we just want to engage with them so that if there's any wrongdoing, we can then be able to rectify it.
Paseka Letsatsi, spokesperson for the South African Social Security Agency.
Tula Sizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, chatting just to wrap up the conversation with Hussein Karjikar from the Mail and Guardian. This, of course, in the light of what we now know of, 25 members of the staff, editorial staff in the Mail, I would think, delivered with Section 189 notices and what that means for the future of the Mail and Guardian, and certainly for them as well, right? So, Hussein, just before the break, I touched on that Senaf, expressed, being disheartened and noted the alarming developments. But I mean, beyond being alarmed or alarming developments, what more can SANAF do about it?
Well, I guess there's very little to it. And I'm with SANAF in expressing my feeling of disheartenment, at having reached this point, because I'd really hoped that, somehow or other there would be a revival, or there would be a quicker transition across to digital revenues that could keep the company sort of at least going and profitable moving forward. Mm-hmm. But that hasn't happened, and until we get some meaningful intervention, and perhaps it could be with developments at the Competition Commission or developments elsewhere. I mean, there's very little, I guess, one can do. And we've seen our competitors, we've seen this happen in the other titles as well. I mean, I got to a point last year when Civic Quest 92 was actually closed down. I think they're actually doing very well online, and I think News 24 does very well online, but we don't have the kind of deep pockets to be able to invest. I mean, I think that what attracts readers is no doubt good quality journalism is what attracts readers to your platforms. And sadly, we won't have that right now. We are going to suffer a bit, I guess, with quality of output or regularity of output. But it's a bridge we're going to have to cross and just rebuild again, and that's what we have to do.
But I mean, and here's the point. I mean, how then do you ensure that maybe with less staff or more full-time or more freelance compared to more full-time staff, and compromising that, how then do you foresee Mail and Guardian playing out in terms of ultimately delivering to that target audience in print or digitally, and making sure that advertisers follow suit. If you don't do that consistently, you'd lose that as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so the industry itself is doing a lot more collaborating than ever before. We are collaborating as far as trying to resuscitate a new or a competitive distribution company, for example. We are going to collaborate on content sharing arrangements. We're doing collaboration on commercial. So there's a lot of sort of coming together to knowledge from the industry itself. And we're all speaking quite regularly about how we can do, what we can do to help each other. And I must sort of thank the publishers who have reached out and have offered a helping hand to us so that we can sort of navigate this very difficult road that we're facing right now. But, you know, we do not want the energy to close. The energy celebrates its 40th birthday this year, and we really want it to become sustainable so that it could sort of continue to contribute, you know, its influential voice to the to the sector.
And at that point, we do not want the MNG to close. Is it under threat of closure?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay,
not at all.
Let's leave it at
I
that.
mean, any shareholder would make the kind of adjustments that we make right now. There is no threat to it being closed down.
Okay,
Absolutely
Hussein
not.
Kajika heading up, in fact, the Mail and Guardian. Much appreciate your time. But there's certainly some questions that need to be asked about the newsroom, something we can ask about just about every newsroom in the country, isn't it? What we can do is get your thoughts. So on the pulse, we'll get to you next.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, Mvusi Wekaya, we sort of chat once every 3 months, and somebody say that's not good enough. But anyway, let's get your thoughts from East London this time, right? Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Look, I was hoping to ask the question directly to the Mail and Guardian guy.
Yeah.
To say he's talking about all these things, but he's not saying anything about winning the readers, trying to understand the readers and what are their changing habits of reading and consuming newspapers. Because it can't just be assumed that people are moving to digital. There's a lot of problems, or there are a lot of things that are happening. People are just not reading newspapers, whether they are digital or not. There's something that needs to be done. The problem, though, is in South Africa, both your electronic and print, the focus of the marketing that is done, it is to attract of research. Actually, it is done to attract advertisers. It is not to attract new audiences. And this is the problem, because when the competition came from digital platforms, it came with a well-rounded strategy to win and sustain those audiences in those platforms. And this is what these guys are not talking about. And it's disservice to society, really.
Well, maybe perhaps they don't know any better. And I hear your point. I mean, we could have asked him that. There was just not enough time. But I think it's a challenge they all face about how do you retain and grow audiences? I mean, what do people really want? And do we actually truly understand what they want? But let's leave it at that for now. Mvusi Wekaya, we'll probably have another chat about that sometime soon. Let's pick up some further comments. Here's one on an issue we'll touch on just now.
Ashraf, I know some MKP members will cry foul about this judgment of Jan Hlophe. It's simple mathematics. No need to think hard about this. We can't have lawbreakers being lawmakers. He has to go out of the parliament, Hlophe. His skills in KZN.
Okay, I think we just lost that last part. But, I mean, that's an interesting point. We can't have lawbreakers being lawmakers. I mean, I wish I had your name, because I think it's an important point that you raise on that issue. There's a couple more comments. Some people texting. Let me just pick it up here. No, that one's out. Okay, let me just tell you what else is coming up. So we will be chatting to the leader of the Al Jama party, because they, in fact, they should have done it already today. We're going to get an update. They've set to lay charges against the 9 members of parliament who visited Israel fairly recently. We'll find out exactly what they've done and what their story is. We'll then also chat to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs around the annual initiation season that's just about kicking in now. And lots of questions about that too. So looking forward to those conversations. And then an update on that Dr. John Hlophe story about whether he can serve or not. Well, we know now he can't on the JSC. Let's get the news first. However, it's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Gross.
Thank you, Ashraf. Announcement on the fuel price and court bars Hlophe from serving on the JSC. Good day to you. The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy is expected to announce its latest fuel price adjustment before midnight tomorrow. According to initial reports by the Department's Central Energy Fund, the price of petrol is expected to come down this month by 19 cents a litre and diesel by 50 cents a litre. However, the massive hike in the fuel levy, recently announced by National Treasury, will see motorists paying more at the pump. The announcement could be delayed after the EFF filed an urgent court bid to prevent the fuel levy hike from kicking in this Wednesday. The court judgment on that matter is expected tomorrow. Notando Makutulera reports.
Last month, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced a general fuel levy hike to be implemented in June 2025. This after the VAT increase was challenged and the National Treasury had to find alternative ways to raise revenue. At the same time, the Western Cape High Court is set to hear an urgent court application brought by the EFF on the general fuel levy increase on Tuesday. The EFF filed its papers last week and argues that the implementation of the fuel levy increase will be economically harmful.
The Western Cape High Court has declared unconstitutional and invalid the decision of the National Assembly to designate MK parliamentary leader John Hlophe as one of its representatives on the Judicial Service Commission. The DA approached the court over his designation to the JSC. It was joined by Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch. The court ruled that the National Assembly may not designate Hlophe to serve on the JSC in terms of the Constitution. It's ordered both Hlophe and the MK party to pay costs. Last year, the National Assembly voted to impeach Hlophe as the Western Cape Judge President after the JSC found him guilty of gross misconduct. A sangoma and a mother accused of the murder of the woman's 2-year-old baby has been postponed to Thursday in the Vanderbijl Park Magistrates Court south of Johannesburg. They face multiple charges including premeditated murder and human trafficking. The NPA's Lumko Mahanjana.
It is alleged that on the 10th of November 2024, the mother of the child and the sangoma killed and buried the child at a shallow grave in Waterpan because the mother was not happy with the gender of the child and was tired of hiding the fact that the child was a girl to her family. After investigations by the police, the sangoma was arrested and he subsequently made a confession and pointing out to where the body of the baby was buried.
22 foreign nationals who appeared in the Ventersdorp Magistrates Court in the northwest have been remanded in custody awaiting legal representation. They're facing charges of contravention of the Immigration Act and possession of an unlicensed firearm and ammunition. 21 of the suspects from Lesotho, while the other is from Malawi. They were allegedly found packing and wrapping different food items, seemingly destined for distribution to illegal miners in the province. Zebulon Maina has the story.
Following the arrest of 22 undocumented foreign nationals and processing of the crime scene, various food items commonly used by illegal miners were quantified. They include 11,430 packets of 1 kg instant porridge, 6,599 tins of baked beans, 3,510 canned beef, 2,700 cans of fish, amongst others. Police say the estimated market value of the seized item is approximately 770,000. The accused will reappear in court on Thursday for formal bail application. Zebulon Maine, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Finally, militants linked to Al-Qaeda say they've attacked Mali's army in the city of Timbuktu. More than 400 soldiers have reported been killed by insurgents since the start of May in bases and towns in Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. The BBC's Simon Ponsford has more.
It's the latest sign of collapsing security in Mali and the wider Sahel region. Militants say they've targeted Malian soldiers in Timbuktu. Residents have reported hearing gunfire and explosions. The historic city, one of the UN's World Heritage Sites, has been under siege in recent years. In 2012, it was captured by Tuareg fighters. French forces eventually drove them out. But violence in Mali and neighbouring countries has kept on rising, and millions of people have been displaced.
Top story, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy is expected to announce its latest fuel price adjustment before midnight tomorrow. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Goss.
In sports this hour, Proteas almost certain of WTC final team. This is according to Themba Bavuma. Durban City officially promoted to Elite SA League, and Steyn targets rare Two Oceans Comrades double. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview, queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. Grayston Drive eastbound in Sandton has delays towards the M1 highway, and the N1 southbound in Midrand, a stationary vehicle after Olifantsfontein Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the M4 southbound has a crash before Bayhead Road Bridge. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound queuing towards the R300 interchange. Main Road in Observatory has a crash reported at Kotze Road, and Viking Way eastbound in Epping, slow moving towards the N7 Jakes Hadville Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Planet Earth, third planet from the sun. A cool place within the solar system where you can pause and take a deep breath without your lungs exploding. Home to an amazing array of wildlife and amazing landscapes that will leave you breathless either through wonder or fear. For humans, it's a place they call home, the only one that they have now. Team Surai follows a dedicated group of individuals dedicated to protecting the planet. Their mission, to encourage viewers to take concrete steps to protect the Earth. Catch Team Surai Thursdays at 6 p.m. S3, open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Are you listening to the show for the very first time? If that's the case, I want to know, just because I can give you a shout out. I'd love to know if you are tuned in for the first time, male, female, old, and definitely if you're below 30, because I really want to speak to that very important audience of 30 and below, not just 35, but 30 and below. But that's just one point. As if you're a regular, well, that's absolutely fantastic as well. And I can tell you now, your commitment to listening and driving the National Pulse is just so important. Still to come, we'll have an update on the whole Dr. John Klopé issue. We'll chat about that with the legal expert. We'll also chat to the Minister of Corporate Governance on the issue of initiation season. But let's get to another season of sorts. I'm going to chat to Hanif Hendricks, who's the president of Al Jama. I understand today that members of Al Jama's National Working Committee, in fact, went to the police station and laid a criminal charge against 9 MPs, members of parliament, who visited Israel. That's the basis of their charge. Let's find out more about it with the president of Al Jama, Hanif Hendricks. Much appreciate your time, and thanks for connecting with us once again on the National Pulse.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Right. Give me the facts. You've laid a charge on what grounds?
Look, as you know, that last year South Africa signed the Convention on the Suppression Against Apartheid, That convention requires countries who sign it to punish those who indulge in apartheid activities. Then South Africa has also signed the Rome Statute, which declassifies apartheid as a crime against humanity. So you've got to look at the convention and you've got to look at the Rome Statute. So both of them have been domesticated into our law. And in April, the first case relating to promoting apartheid activities has been launched. And so this will be the second case. As you know, that a month ago, 9 members of parliament went on a public relations stunt to Israel when they observed all the atrocities and came back and said there's no apartheid in Israel. So that created a furor amongst political parties. And Al-Jamaa advocate Shamim Masali was the first person to lay a complaint with the speaker, followed by the MK party and then followed by the ANC, raising their concern about this public relations stunt, saying that there are no atrocities in Israel. There's no apartheid.
So what's the basis what's the basis of your charge? Is it that they went to Israel, or they have an opinion differing to your opinion, or the South African government narrative?
Look, the basis of the charge is that they contravened the convention and also South Africa's obligation in terms of international law with regard to the Rome Statute, and that by saying that there is no apartheid or condoning what is happening in Israel and saying that there's nothing wrong with it, they have committed what we call a crime against humanity. So the charge sheet will show that they committed a crime against humanity by going on this PR stunt and promoting apartheid. As you know, we want to criminalize apartheid activities in South Africa. It must never rear its head again. So this is the second case where we find that people are trying to bring apartheid back to South Africa. And it's very sad that it's members of parliament that went on this trip. And secondly, that some of them serve on the Justice Committee and had a career in the Public Prosecution Authority. So the case has been laid. It will be escalated to the Criminal Investigation Department. And then, and then the law must take its course. Now, the convention also states that there must be progressive punishment for those who promote apartheid or do PR work for apartheid. So they suggest, first of all, it is a sensitivity training. People need to understand the harshness of apartheid, especially in South Africa.
Okay.
Secondly, there should be progressive fines before they are actually incarcerated.
All right, let's get some clarity on these issues, right? So if they went to, again, some may say Israel, others may talk about it as they went to Palestine, but if they went to Israel and they came back and their views were similar to the views of the South African government, or say yourself in your personal capacity, Al-Jamaa, then would you have been fine with that if they came back and said what we see in that region are atrocities against, say, the people of Palestine, as opposed to we don't see any apartheid?
Look, as you know, that it's very difficult to get into Israel and come back with so-called independent views. So if the judgment of what was happening was fair, which it certainly was not, because the whole world is saying that Israel is an apartheid state, and I wouldn't have a quarrel with that.
Okay. What about? I mean, they're all part of the MPs. They're part of the National Assembly, so they're all essentially belong to political parties. I'm trying to think if there's any independence there. If that's the case, is your gripe? I mean, you've laid a charge, but is the gripe against them in their personal capacity, or because they're MPs specifically, right? And then, if that's the case, what about the political parties that they're a part of?
Look, we laid a case because they are members, the honourable members of Parliament, and some of them, like I said earlier on, serve on the Justice Portfolio Committee. They should know that South Africa is obliged to respect international law, especially if it has signed conventions in that regard. Their political parties have come out strongly to say that parties have got nothing to do with it. They weren't involved in the arrangements. They went in their personal capacities. They didn't consult their political parties. So you can't expect me now to criticize the political parties. And also, because they are members of Parliament, we felt that we need to lay the criminal charge so that the law can take its course. And secondly, it looks like we still have to educate people that apartheid was harsh, that it should not rear its head in South Africa or any other part of the world. So there's a lot of work to be done. It looks like the 30 years of democracy, we failed to remind people of the harshness of apartheid, which many of us, including yourself, had to live through.
All right. I mean, I hear that part. I think many people were also very surprised when they went on this tour and they found nothing wrong. Except that some people may find things completely wrong and others may find half. Yes, it's open to how you see it. And we do have, what about the freedom of expression that we as a country upholds? We uphold the right of people to say what they feel, without any fear.
Yeah, look, freedom of expression, we must understand that these are public representatives. These are members of Parliament. These are lawmakers. They have a special responsibility to ensure that apartheid doesn't rear its head in South Africa again. So one has to weigh that up against their right to say what they want. But you can't always not say something that is libelous, something that goes against the conventions that South Africa signed. And you can't use freedom of expression to justify crimes against humanity, which apartheid certainly is.
Okay. What about the issue of your own colleagues within the parties? Yes, you said all the parties say they went on their own accord. They were not party representatives, but they are part of the party. So their brand image is so linked to the parties. Like in your case, you're very much a part of Al Jamaa. You can't really separate the two, right? Now, I asked that question because this may not be a legal issue, but there are members that went who are part of political parties that are part of the GNU, and you're part of it. I mean, as a deputy cabinet minister, is that not something that you've raised with your colleagues, and what has come out of that?
Look, in the government of national unity, I don't want to say we fight like cats and dogs, but we all have our different views. So it doesn't mean because I'm a member of the government of national unity, that we, like President Ramaphosa says, we cajole with one another. Everyone has their own party, has their own positions. And the government of national unity, is not a forum that prevents you from propagating your party's policies, your own position on things. And so I don't think, that is a factor.
Okay, but you don't see the contradiction. What I'm saying is some parties that are part of the GNU are almost neutral. They don't necessarily say they support Israel, but they don't necessarily say they support the Palestinians. They're fairly neutral in their views. Some of them are very clear about where they sit. For example, what comes to mind is Gayton McKenzie, who's been very, very clear about his position. In fact, he went on a similar tour to this. I'm just saying because that's part of the decision-making that you're a part of. So how then do you, on the one hand, take 9 people to court, right? On the other hand, you're still part of a consultative forum in leadership of the country with others who are probably even more articulate about expressing their support of Israel versus Palestine.
Well, the last 10 months, the issue of Palestine has never come up in the government of national unity. It has never been raised even in the cabinet clusters or in the cabinet meetings or in the executive. And certainly when it comes up, you will find parties like the ANC, Al-Jama, and maybe the Good Party. We will vigorously, put our position. And, if the DA and the Freedom Front and the PA support it, we'll tear them to pieces.
But you'll still be together, chummies, as part of the GNU.
No, we're not chummies. We're not chummies at all. You find in the cabinet clusters, in the cabinet meetings, there are no favors. Each party expresses their policy position. There's no such thing as chummies.
Okay, let's see how that follows through. Certainly day one today, and a charge actually laid against 9 members of parliament who actually went to Israel and came back very, very glowing in their reports of Israel, and clearly not an apartheid state, as they were very clear about. And certainly Hanif Hendricks, the Al-Jama president, and his party taking exception to that. Much appreciate your time, the president of Al-Jama, Hanif Hendricks. Thank you for that. Right, let's get opinion from you. Where do you see this in terms of this precedent about the position of Al-Jama? This is the National Pulse.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May. Only on S3. Open up.
EFC is live this Thursday. The indestructible champion Zakir Badat descends from the wild mountains to defend his welterweight title against Nigeria's electrifying kickboxing champion Segun Ogunaiki. Plus, Timnan Lawuli takes on Sibusiso Suvandila, and undefeated Kevin Pretorius steps up to challenge Oswaldo Benedito. EFC 124 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Bigger office, more staff, a new location? Growth takes investment, and a business term loan from Standard Bank gives you the capital you need to expand on your terms. With competitive interest rates, fixed monthly repayments, and a dedicated support team, you can plan ahead with confidence. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank business term loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we'll get your comments as soon as we can on all the issues and more that we've spoken about. But I mean, these numbers are something. 94 lives were lost in 2024. 11 individuals suffered amputations due to unsafe practices. I need to say unsafe initiation practices. And once again, the 2025 initiation season, or the in winter customary initiation season, is upon us. Let's get the thoughts of the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Minister Belinkosi Xolabisa. Appreciate you connecting to us once again on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for your time. I mean, you may have heard my introduction when I talk about 94 young lives lost, 11 suffering amputations in pursuit of a very important customary right within their communities. How then do you respond as the head of, effectively traditional affairs, knowing it's upon us once again?
Indeed, the figures that you are referring to are worrying. And that is why we have been working very hard this year to ensure that the winter season achieves zero rate in terms of death and casualties, and we have activated all sectors of the society and all the key departments which are going to be working together to ensure that this time around we achieve zero death in terms of the initiates.
So how do you ensure that? Because I'm trying to think whether it's within your control as the ministry.
Nice one. This one.
Yeah, go ahead. Minister? Minister, do we have you there still? I was saying, how do you then, the intent is to have zero fatalities, but I'm asking as the ministry, how do you achieve that?
The cooperation of all sectors of the society. We have activated the traditional leadership because initiation, the people who really are the custodians, is our traditional institution. We have engaged headmen and headwomen, traditional leaders, even the kings. And we have activated all the committees at provincial level that deals with initiation. The SAPS is also on standby because a number of challenges happen in the illegal schools. We are going to adopt a zero tolerance to illegal schools.
Right, so how do you do that? When I'm saying that with respect that the issues of losses of life around initiation is not a new thing. When we talk about 90 people dying or 94 dying last year, that's not uncommon. Just about every year we find two things: a huge focus on the importance of the customary initiation, but also a huge focus on the losses of life. So what has been happening for the last 20 years, why would it suddenly change this time around? What's going to happen that's different?
I'm not sure whether have you ever heard of what I'm saying in terms of the mobilization of the key stakeholders.
I
have,
but
I
what I'm
don't
saying
know.
how, yeah. I said I have heard you. What I'm asking is how. Mobilizing is one thing. How then, in practical circumstances, will you actually be able to prevent, obviously, a very honorable ideal, which is zero deaths?
One, every initiate who will go to the initiation school must have gone through the medical screening, because some of them who die in the initiation schools, it is because of health-related reasons. Once health screening is done, those who are not given a clean health bill to go there shall not be allowed in the initiation schools. And the communities must constantly visit the initiation schools, because the males, the fathers, as we know that women have a little role to play in the monitoring as to what is happening in the initiation schools, is correct. In other initiation schools in South Africa, they have been getting zero death for many years. Mm-hmm. So it is not something that is not impossible. It is something possible as long as you ensure that there is a close monitoring, there is consequence management in cases where you find that there are abuse in terms of the initiates, either physically, because in some instances they are beaten them, and even when they have been conducted the initiation, the people who are surgeons are not suitably qualified and experienced people. We said all that must be checked so that we do not experience injuries, because in most cases, the amputations are as a result of not sufficiently experienced surgeons who are practicing the initiation process.
So here's the last thing. If you're saying there are some initiation schools that are not suitably qualified, in fact, to do that. So what's the percentage? What percentage of these initiation schools are not qualified, and what can you actually do about it?
The schools that will not be qualified as illegal schools, we will shut them down. The surgeons who are conducting the initiation process, we put that one on the shoulders of parents, because every child who goes there has a parent. That the initiation school in which you send your child, you must ensure the person who is a surgeon and the caregivers are people with competencies to take care of your child during this transition period. And this cannot be achieved only by the minister. It has to be achieved through the collaborative effort of parents, communities, committees responsible for the initiation throughout the country, as well as the traditional institutions.
Well, I think that makes sense. And then again, what percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
No, my brother, you cannot have a percentage, because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we say a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
Okay, got that. Thanks for clearing that up. Well, we look forward to a zero deaths initiation season. Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velinkosi Hlabisa, thanks for sharing your thoughts here on the National Pulse. Let's get the headlines, news headlines that is. Here's Greg Gross.
A quick look at the headlines at this half hour. The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy is expected to announce its latest fuel price adjustment before midnight tomorrow. The Northwest Department of Education has defended its decision over a 100 million rand contract for the printing, packaging and delivery of the matric exams for this year. And the Ukrainian president says peace talks in Turkey have concluded, revealing that Ukraine and Russia plan on exchanging more prisoners of war. There's more details at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound has heavy traffic towards Boysons. The N1 southbound in Sunninghill has a crash at Rivonia Road. All lanes are open. Main Reef Road westbound in Amalgam has a crash reported at Nasrec Road, and Eskempahleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Moot Street. In KZN, the M4 is queuing at Glen Ashley, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway exit, the N7 northbound is queuing towards Plattekloof Road, Strandfontein Road southbound queuing towards Spine Road, and 35th Avenue southbound in Bishop Lavis has a crash reported at Robert Sobukwe Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, lots happening in the world of sport. If it's not playing, it's the conspiracy theories and the speculation. What are you going to start with, to me?
Well, we're still focusing on cricket, building up to the World Test Championship, and Proteas captain Themba Bavuma says that they already know who will play in the final against Australia that is scheduled for to start on the 11th of June at Lord's. Bavuma and his team left for London on Friday on a mission to win the all-important match and lift a senior ICC trophy for the first time since readmission back in 1992. Now, with a 4-day preparation match against Zimbabwe starting tomorrow, the skipper says that himself, coach Shukri Conrad, have already discussed the makeup of the team with small tweaks to be informed by the weather and pitch conditions on the day.
To be honest with you, it's quite clear from myself and Shukri as to what we want to do. I think Shukri has already said that Rickleton will be in terms of opening. Probably one conversation that we need to have, whether we're going the extra specialist batter, whether it's the extra all-rounder. But I think the makeup of the team, largely we kind of know. The warm-up game is not a trial game, you know. We're definitely not going to use it like that. I think the conditions, I think that's probably the biggest thing that will influence those one or two spots. The pitch, what the pitch looks like, because obviously they're in England. I think that's a big thing. So, yeah, the 4-day game is not a trial. We have a a 90-95% conviction as to around our starting 11.
Meanwhile, SA batter Heinrich Klaasen has announced his retirement from international cricket after 7 years with the Proteas. Klaasen, who recently featured in the IPL for the Sunrisers Hyderabad, will walk away having represented South Africa in 4 tests, 60 ODIs and 50 T20s. He also scored 2,141 runs on ODIs at an average of just under 44 in the middle order. In the meantime, explosive Australian batsman Glenn Maxwell called time on his one-day international career, but will continue in T20 cricket with his eye on next year's World Cup. The 36-year-old, who played 149 ODIs, blasting 3,990 runs, said that he was starting to feel the physical toll of the 50-over game. In football, Durban City have officially been crowned MFC champions and will compete in the Betway Premiership next season. This is after an arbitration ruling found in their favor, leaving GDR Stars and Cape Town Spurs with no option but to accept the outcome. Just a week ago, the PSL Disciplinary Committee held hearings involving Durban City, JDR Stars and Cape Town Spurs. The protest lodged by Stars and Spurs centered an allegation that Durban City midfielder had been improperly registered. After 2 weeks of proceedings, the PSLDC ruled in favor of Durban City, and as a result, City are confirmed as MFC champions and will take their place in the Betway Premiership next season, while Cape Town Spurs will be relegated from the Motsepe Foundation Championship. Then in tennis, second seed Coco Gauff advanced to the quarterfinals for the 5th year in a row at the Roland Garros, following a 6-love and 7-5 win over Ekaterina Alexandrova, while Alexandra Zverev progressed to the quarterfinals after beating Talon Griekspoor, and who retired hurt with the score 6-4 and 3-love. Then in athletics, South African athletics legend Khotso Mokoena has been re-elected to lead the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee Athletes Commission. Mokoena made history 4 years ago as the first athlete to chair the commission and will now continue in the role for another 4-year term. And speaking to SABC Sport, he expressed confidence that the sporting federations are satisfied with the commission's efforts in supporting athletes.
Obviously, I was re-elected as the chairperson of the Athletes Commission, which only says one thing to me, is that all the national federations are quite happy with the work that we are doing for the athletes. And I really just want to say thanks to the guys that were part of the Athletes Commission in the last quadrennial. They've done absolutely fantastic. I managed to retain most of them to stay on the Athletes Commission, and we've got new blood now. We've got young athletes that are really hyper and really activated in terms of their vision for the athletes. Life-saving, we've got new athletes there. Netball, we've got athletes there. Rights Mkari, we also have Rights Mkari. These are athletes that are seriously always advocating for a better sports. I'm so happy with the representation of the women on the new Athletes Commission as well.
Well, Ashraf, before I say goodbye, just speaking to the question you asked earlier about if fans are happy that Mamelodi Sundowns didn't win yesterday. I'm seeing on X, some are saying not so thrilled, and some are saying, listen, a club is a club worldwide.
A club is a club worldwide. Unless if you are Inter Milan and AC Milan, there's this mock funeral for you after you lose. That's clearly a different sort of club. But I think, you're right. For many people, they'd be okay if it helps a country. But in their heart of hearts, they wish that was their club winning a title for their country. I can't imagine Al Ahly supporters saying, Pyramids won the Champions League. We are so delighted for Egypt. No ways. They would see Pyramids as this big challenger to Al Ahly, and they don't like that. Anyway, we will connect again tomorrow to me. Thank you.
All right, with that said,
welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana.
It's a complicated one, and one that I think that the South African legislative space has been battling with. How do you begin to bring in regulations, to bring in controls for how web works, which is something that is not in the control of any particular government? It's an open space, but you must still have some levels of controls and human rights violations.
We are very clear that disinformation and misinformation are not merely communication problems. They are deliberate violations of human rights. Because of course, when false information circulates, it undermines several rights. It undermines the right to equality, the right to dignity, the right to access to information.
Tsepo Madlingozi is the commissioner at the South African Human Rights Commission.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, the SAFM market update comes up in an hour's time to set the scene. Here's Jimmy Moya. You want to talk about another SOE?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yep, they keep popping up. This time around, the Department of Transport, Minister Barbara Creecy there in that office, of course, have announced that they will be pushing on with a plan to create a national shipping carrier. Now, for a bit of context around this, there was a shipping business that was state-owned at some point around 25 years or so ago. That was subsequently sold to a company called Maersk, and now we're looking at perhaps creating a new shipping company, or I don't know if it's taking back the other one. We're going to speak to transport economist Dr. Joachim Vermeulen about that and get a sense of what that means, what the implications of that could potentially be, and whether or not it is viable at this stage, I suppose. Then we've got a conversation looking at the cost of starting an airline. That is obviously something that has been topical in the past, something that we're going to be taking a look at in the context of how travel is in South Africa at the moment. We've lost a lot of airlines. We're down to a couple of them, and they make flying a lot more expensive. But at the same time, I've spoken in the past to CEOs of companies such as Lyft and other airlines around the cost of running an airline. But we're going to take a look at what it actually takes to get one off the ground and whether or not it could be a viable business opportunity for someone. We also got a conversation with the team at Dis-Chem. They gave us an update on their performance on Friday. Now, of course, we don't have a show on Friday, so we have to catch up with them today. Strong numbers from that business. We're going to speak to the company's CEO and get a sense of that performance. Then we've got a conversation with the head of complaints and investigations at the National Consumer Commission around the latest batch of vehicle recalls. This time it includes motorcycles. So we're going to look at that with the National Consumer Commission and what consumers need to know about recalls and how to best protect yourself in that case as a consumer. Safety recalls are a very serious thing. And then because it is Monday, we're going to wrap up the show with a digital drive. We're going to take a look at Google's latest initiative in the form of Gemini Live. So Google has an AI called Gemini. They've launched Gemini Live. We're going to take a look at that with our resident tech and EV specialist, Nafisa Akabor, and get a sense of what is so different about that. Before we get to that, the markets have had a considerably better day, starting off effectively the month of June in positive territory. If you're looking at international markets, they didn't start off so strong. All of the Asian markets were in the red, with the biggest loser being the Nikkei down 1.6%. The Hang Seng Hong Kong index was down around 0.2%, and the Shanghai main index was down 0.3%. If we look at European markets, they were also in the red, with the exception of the FTSE marginally in the green, about 5 basis points in the green there. But the biggest loser there being the DAX down 0.3%. The Nasdaq is currently flat-ish at the moment, with the S&P down about 0.1%. Our own local markets, resources down almost up 6%. That offset the 0.4% loss in industrials and the 0.3% losses that we saw on financials. As a result, the top 40 was up a whole 1%, and the all share was up around about 0.9%. The rand from 18 rand back at 17.88 against the US dollar, 1 British pound 24 rand 23, 1 euro 20 rand and 44 cents, 1 Australian dollar 11 rand and 60 cents. So the rand gaining against pretty much the US dollar only, but giving back against the other major currencies. 1 Bitcoin, $104,300 a Bitcoin, or around 1.86 million rand. So back below that 2 million rand mark. Quick look at commodities before we go. Platinum, $1,068 a fine ounce. Palladium, $1,000 a fine ounce. Brent crude, $64.85 a barrel. And gold, $3,374 a fine ounce. This time last week, or towards the end of last week, the gold price kind of closed out the week around the 3,200 or sub 3,300 territory. So we're going to look at that in terms of market movements a little later on. I want to get a sense of how effectively the last month of this quarter would be, and what we can expect from the markets as we go into the rest of June. But we'll be back with that conversation at 6 o'clock. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, got it. You enjoy your show 6 to 7. It's coming up just over 15 minutes. In fact, I might include the news in that, right? Okay, we're going to get to your thoughts because you're on the pulse. I need to feel it. Absolutely. But before that, what about Dr. John Hlophe? We'll talk about him right after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, you may have heard that story earlier today. The Western Cape High Court ruling that it was unconstitutional and invalid for the National Assembly in Parliament to designate Dr. John Hlophe of the MK Party, I may add, as a member of the Judicial Service Commission. Not because he's part of the MK Party, must stress that, but because of his own history when he was serving as an advocate, right? Well, Mbekazeli Benjamin is with us from Judges Matter Research. He's an advocacy officer, and he's going to break down this judgment for us. So much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse once again.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Right. First things first, does this come as a surprise to you? I would think not, right?
Not really. It wasn't surprising because it raises something that we had consistently said, that Parliament has a responsibility to designate only those people who would enhance public trust in the judiciary as members of the Judicial Service Commission. And so the judgment does confirm that aspect, but it also goes on to clarify the roles and responsibilities of Parliament when it comes to designating members into constitutional bodies like the JSC.
So what does this mean, therefore, in practice? Maybe just tell us a bit more about John Hlophe himself in terms of how he got into this position of now effectively vulnerability.
Well, yeah, in relation to Dr. Hlophe, you'll remember that he was the judge president of the Western Cape High Court until he was impeached. And the basis for that impeachment was a finding of gross misconduct by the Judicial Service Commission. They did an investigation through a Judicial Conduct Tribunal, and they looked at his behavior in terms of how he tried to influence judges of the Constitutional Court in a case involving former President Zuma. And for that, the JSC said that he had committed an act of gross misconduct that was a violation of the Constitution, and they said that he must be removed from office. And that removal was done by Parliament by a vote of 305 out of 400 members to impeach him and remove him from office. That happened in February of last year. And so one of the points that the judge made was that it was irrational for the National Assembly to deem such a person to be suitable to serve on the JSC, because it undermines the role and function of the JSC, but it also undermines public confidence and trust in the judicial appointment process, essentially.
Okay, what happens next in terms of what are the options that he has? Is that the end of the line?
So, look, there is an option of appeal, especially because this case involves the powers of Parliament to exercise and make decisions in terms of the Constitution. So I have no doubt that it's going to go to the Constitutional Court. It might start at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. But for now, this judgment means that Dr. Hlophe may not be a member of the Judicial Service Commission, and Parliament may not later decide to designate him as a member of the JSC. Parliament can still designate any other member of the MK party to be a member of the JSC.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time, and we're certainly going to follow that story. In Mbekezeli Benjamin, Judges Matter Research and Advocacy Officer, reflecting on certainly, is it the biggest story of the day in terms of implications? Maybe certainly from an MK party point of view, that the Western Cape High Court ruling it was unconstitutional and invalid for the National Assembly in Parliament to designate Dr. John Hlophe as a member of the Judicial Service Commission. That's because he was struck off the roll before. I'll get to your thoughts in a moment.
What if you open your night to culture? Try new things and make space for new voices, new stories, and new perspectives. Open up your Saturday night with world-class entertainment, reality TV, and drama from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele Legal Plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
As a business owner, I've noticed how being energy efficient has improved my savings and the growth of my business. You too can improve your margins by adopting energy efficient behaviors. Simply switch to energy saving lighting, switch off non-essential equipment, and maintain HVAC systems. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to see your business soar as well as contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
Banyana Banyana, African champions, host Zambia and Botswana in the Three Nations Challenge to prepare for their title defense in Morocco. All matches will be at the Lucas Moripe Stadium at 3 p.m. Banyana Banyana take on Botswana on Wednesday the 28th of May. Then Zambia faces Botswana on Saturday the 31st of May. And Banyana Banyana close with Zambia on Tuesday the 3rd of June 2025. The nation with the most points wins the trophy. And the tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 40 Rand for adults and 20 Rand for children under 12 and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Banyana_Banyana on X. For the love of the game.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Okay, let's get to your thoughts on some of the biggest issues because you're on the pulse. Luvo in Gqeberha, go for it.
Good day, Ashraf.
Yeah, how's it, man?
I'm fine, thanks, man. How are you doing?
I'm good indeed. Right, what's your point?
Great stuff. Something to think about, Ashraf, as a nation. Also think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Our girls are getting married every day and getting raped every day. Our women are getting raped and killed every day. Cape Flats, it's a crisis, gang war zone. You come to PE, northern areas, gang war zone. Motherwell in PE, gang war zone. We're getting killed left and right. Now, here's the question, Ashraf. What do we call that? Is it not a genocide?
I don't think
on
so.
our side?
I think, listen, just a quick one. I mean,
Yes.
genocide refers to an intent by one group over another that's mobilized against another to effectively annihilate them. And it could be on the basis of race or religion or culture or that sort of thing. I mean, this is murder and rampant violence on a national crisis scale, but it's not genocide unless you're targeting a group of people on a wide scale, not one or two people, for that reason. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But maybe let's Google it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it makes sense. Meaning the country, we are at war. We are at war with our own. The country is at war at itself.
Yeah, but it's not
We are
a
at war.
genocide. I mean,
Not a genocide.
Just in terms of actual definition, right? Okay, let's get to Joe in Limpopo. Hello.
Hello, sir. How are
Yeah,
you?
how's it, Joe? Go for it. Your point?
All right. Having a concern about the comment coming from Coxstar Minister.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he said they will deal with beggars schools and initiation school and all those things. If we check last year how many people died, nothing. If they were talking the same language. So now it's a song. Even now, Ashra, wait for July when all those things over. There will be a lot of people being killed there.
Okay, so you're not convinced by what he said, yeah?
I'm not convinced. Every year, a lot of people died, more especially Eastern Cape.
Okay, got that. Well, 94, that's the number.
Yeah,
people who died
94.
last year.
So if you check now, 94 people. So now he's just talking like a politician. So it's not talking like a
All right,
father.
got that. But he did say that, they will shut down those illegal schools who are not doing their job.
Even last year they were talking about the very same thing. Eastern Cape, there was a lot of Baggage initiation schools. It was never closed. Even now in Eastern Cape, they are already started there.
Okay, got that. Thank you for that. I mean, your concern is there, and you're clearly not. You're not convinced.
I'll
Appreciate it.
phone you when this thing is over.
Okay,
You'll see.
that's fine.
Yeah.
By the way, quick, thank you for that, Joe. Quick one on genocide as per the previous chat we had with, and so here's it. I mean, this is what I said. So I'm now reading, I've ChatGPT'd it very quickly. Genocide is the intentional and systematic destruction in whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. You see, that's the point. It's very intentional about identifying a group and then effectively destroying them, annihilating them. That's really what it is. The term was coined by Raphael Lemkin in 1944 and is legally defined in the United Nations Genocide Convention of 1948. Got that right? Let's get your calls. Let's get some of your WhatsApp comments. Yeah.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Grant from the Free State. It's a pity they didn't activate all the concerned people in the previous years. Maybe they'll get it right this time.
I'm assuming you're talking about initiation schools, but we've heard that before, that they will, leave no stone unturned. So, yeah.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol here from Durban. Yeah, let me make it short and sweet. The Constitutional Court did the right thing as far as John Hlophe is concerned. Errol, Durban.
Okay, got that. Here's another.
Years of the station. Ashraf, GNU is making. Those MPs that went to Israel. I don't know where they were trying to find a fact for who. Because we know that Israel is doing a killing. They must be they must be charged.
Well, so you would agree with the Al-Jama position, yeah?
Good afternoon, Ashraf and team. I've just driven past the Gordon Offrem Bridge, and it seems like a guy wants to commit suicide there. They need to get the authorities out there.
Okay, I mean,
please.
You sent this about 12 minutes ago. Maybe just call back and leave a message with my producer, Kiza Vusani. Let's see if they can connect you, because I mean, you're right. Time is of the essence on that one.
Hi, Ashraf. Chris in Cape Town here. I thought on the KwaZulu-Natal feeding scheme for the children, maybe there's no more money.
Well, that's just the one point that is brought up. But they like talking just change of systems.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. Good show as always. I am a Pirate supporter and I am happy that Sundown didn't win. Thank you. PK, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine a Real Madrid supporter delighted that Barcelona won? Or a Man United fan who's celebrating Liverpool winning the league or the Champions League? Like, no, that's not going to happen. But we do play up what's the cause, the national cause of celebrating winners, doing some see this champion spotting here. Here's one to end with, and just something to think about. Ashraf, many get abducted and taken to the mountain by force. And once there, parents are extorted. I know this because it happened to one of the children of my family members, and many kids die because of the inexperienced foreskin slicer, not largely because of the pre-initiation medical condition. Police do very little about kidnapping of these boys that are then forced to circumcise, but honestly, it is necessary in 2025. Rather, no, it's a question. Honestly, is it necessary in 2025 to go suffer the indignity of botched circumcision in the bushes, risking the loss of your whole penis so you can be called a man when there are hospitals? Jack. Sure. I did say you're on the pulse, and in just one paragraph, Jack has maybe summed up what many people may be thinking as well. That's the show. Catch the podcast. They're all up. They've been posted already on the X platform as well as on Facebook.